Hello, thank you so much for joining us today. This is Nick O'Hare. I'm the Client Relations Manager here with StructureTech, and I'm here with my associate Craig Butler, and we are looking forward to presenting the science of roof repairs, getting the most impact from your investments. Really today, what we're looking to cover is really the best practices for making roof repairs, and often it's more than you think. With over 300 types of roof systems out there, there are numerous factors that need to be taken into consideration before contracting for repair. So what Craig and I are hoping to cover today is really understanding that science of roof repair technologies and all the different complexities of applications and the techniques, and help to bring everyone here up to speed on that so you can really make educated decisions as you really work to extend the service life of your existing roof system. So Craig and I are going to cover the most common roof repair techniques that often fall short in terms of quality, durability, cost efficiency. And then ultimately, we want to help to make sure that you understand the key difference between good and bad roof repairs. We want to help to ensure that you're making the right investments by isolating roof deficiencies based on condition, and how to properly evaluate your roof system, and really understanding the impact of having a good contractor performing repairs versus Craig, potentially bad contractor in performing the repairs. So real quick here before we get into it, format of today's presentation, Craig and I are going to take about 45-50 minutes for the actual presentation. We'll leave maybe 5 minutes at the end for questions. So if at any point you have questions, please enter them in on the system, but Craig and I are going to wait to the end to get to questions, and we'll get to really as many as possible. So, you know, Craig, waterfalls are usually beautiful, aren't they? They look pretty good, but unfortunately, undesigned interior waterfalls are not beautiful, and they can lead to many problems for facility managers or facilities professionals, you know, responsible for managing the actual facility. So I think we've all been in this situation before. It's really unfortunate, but I don't know if this is photoshopped or what, but we've got here this high-end businessman sitting at the desk trying to take care of his urgent business, and he has to have an umbrella there because leaks are coming in and really disrupting operations. So obviously this is an exaggeration, we hope, but you know, leaks into the interior of the facility can cause some major disruptions to the business, whether it's the professional organization, whether it's, you know, the manufacturing operations, shutting down a surgical suite in a hospital, closing down a classroom of a school. This is not a situation that we really want to be in. So, you know, looking at some other things that can happen, Craig, we see this all the time. We see stained ceiling tiles. It's one of the first things you and your teams will see. This photo here on the right, I mean, this is a real consequence of neglect. This is long-term leakage. This is a major Fortune 500 company. They got a pretty significant corporate campus, and what they did is they purchased a hotel in the community. It's like 5-star. They would bring in their executives from around the world. They would bring in clients, other visitors. They'd host them at this hotel, but long-term leakage led to some pretty significant problems here. So you can see that the wallpaper being peeled back, and we've got pretty significant mold damage here. So leaks long term, you know, created some pretty significant damage long term. So understanding that, what's the first thing that most facility managers do when they have a problem? Usually, you know, we call a roofing contractor, but you know, is that the best thing to do? There's really a lot of misconceptions out there concerning roof repair. So starting with misconception number one is all roofing contractors can properly repair leaks. You know, one of the things are a large percentage of leaks that we get called into aren't even originated from the roof. I mean, we deal with building envelopes as well, and I think it's about 40% of the leak situations that we get called into are dealing with something other than the roof. Could be HVAC, could be window leaks, could be mechanical, things like that. There's a lot of other things, but you know, a roofing contractor might not be able to fix a leak. You know, most contractors, Craig, I think really focus on the installation of new roofs. really might not be specialized in roof maintenance, roof repair, coming out, identifying leakage situations, and taking corrective action to fix that. A lot of companies may or may not have a separate repair division. So again, you know, all their guys going out, laying new construction, brand new roofs, not really in a good position to come out, repair the existing roofs. And a big one here is their expertise may be limited to what they're used to installing. So hey, we focus on single ply roofs, might be EPDMs, might be TPOs, it might be something, but they might not be in a good position to come out and diagnose and repair a leak on your built-up roof system. So, you know, a lot of considerations there to think about. So, Craig, you know, looking at this photo, what are we looking at here? What do we see?
Well, here you have an example of a welded field seam. In this situation, it's been what we call overwelded. Lack of test welds throughout the day, different temperatures can create this different speeds on your robot welder. So that's what you're seeing here. You know, it could be welded too slow and too hot, creating a major burn, and you're actually, you know, showing the scrim inside the membrane, which is going to allow water to wick into that system.
Yeah. So what do you typically see here? A contractor comes out, gets called into the situation. Clearly, this could be leaking, problematic. What do you typically see a contractor doing to take care of this?
You know, a typical contractor would come out and, you know, look around the area. They may probe that seam and find an opening and just do a small patch, or even, you know, worst case, a spot of caulk on it, and that's, you know, that may stop the leak temporarily, but it's not a long-term patch. You know, long-term, you'd need to come in there. You need to put a large patch, heat welded down properly over that, with some cut-edge sealant around that patch. You know, be sure to use like membrane. You know, in the field of the roof, you have to use field membrane, so you can't use the uncured membrane for this.
Yep. Yeah, and the other thing that we see all the time is they'll come in and just try to re-weld it. You know, rather than being over-welded, they might think it was under-welded, didn't get the right bond, and you'll just see them try to re-weld that. But to Craig's point, you want to do a nice, solid, long-term repair.
Yep.
Craig, what are we seeing in this photo?
So this photo is it's what we call a reverse fish mouth. It's a wrinkle in the bottom layer of the membrane there, and that you know, that the bottom field sheet may not have been pulled down tight, or, you know, there was a wrinkle there due to fastening. But that, you know, a trained eye would think that, you know, that's good. You know, it's not going to leak because we got 3/4 of that weld done. Well, when ice and water get in there, and over the seasons, it'll pop and expand and break that weld loose. So, you know, the correct, you know, I guess a standard contractor would come in and, you know, maybe try to weld that top membrane down into the wrinkle, or again, at worst, put a dot of caulk on that and walk away. You know, the correct repair is to put what we call a T-patch over that, you know, weld a patch over that.
Okay. So misconception number 2, all roof leaks are caused by holes or seam failure. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. So we see things like this all the time. I mean, Craig, what are we seeing in this photo?
So here you have a hole in the membrane and what looks to be a screw or a nail underneath that membrane, and you know that's pretty common when people put on these types of roofs. You know, they'll get a screw or a rock stuck in their boot and walk across the membrane, and you know it's just falls off their boot and they don't see it and they roof over it. Well, over time, with that membrane shifting back and forth, shrinking and expanding as the seasons, you'll wear a hole in that, or just foot traffic on the roof. Mm-hmm. You know, cause a hole there.
Yep. So you can see, you know, nail. This is kind of the after photo, but of course, you know, the nail did in fact create a hole, which in fact did create a leak. But so of course, holes, seam failures, things of that nature do create leaks. But really, roof leaks can occur because of failure of any roof component, and potential components that we're seeing leaking all the time when we get called into these situations. You know, it's flashing failures, it's term bars, copings, et cetera. It's all the detail work. Typically, Craig, we're not seeing a lot of problems in the field of the roof. Sure, you might have a hole or a puncture or something that's going to come up, through the life cycle of that roof system, but mostly where we're seeing these problems are all the detail work. Seams being a big one, flashings, perimeter edges, drains, et cetera. That's really where our problematic areas are going to be. So, Craig, looking at this picture, looks like we've got a flashing that's clearly problematic. What do we see?
Well, what I don't see is a termination bar or water cutoff, the mastic you put behind there. Those are the two key things to a flashing. For the basic flashing detail, water cutoff and a turn bar to hold that membrane. Neither one of those are here, so that's going to allow water to migrate in behind that flashing and enter the roof system.
What might we do if you run into this in the field to repair that?
Well, I mean, a typical contractor may just push that flashing back up and caulk off the top of it. Again, short-term fix. But the best repair you can do on that is, pull that flashing down, expose that back edge of that flashing, put some water cut-off sealant in there, fasten a turn bar on there every 12 inches, caulk off the top of that turn bar. And then you can go above and beyond that by putting on a counter flashing over that, kind of the belt and suspenders approach.
Good. Next, Craig, we're seeing this all the time where this is a corner flashing that's, clearly cracked and open, and a lot of these corners, they'll take a lot of abuse because this is from other contractors, and sometimes other contractors don't really take care of our roofs. They have no respect for the roofing system. If it's a mechanical contractor, some sort of equipment contractor, they're treating the roof system as a working surface, which I get. They're not trained roofers. So what we'll see is a lot of times they have equipment that's tied off to these corners or curbs, and it's just creating a lot of problems. So Craig, what do we typically see when we come into a situation like this?
Typically, we'll see, the typical contractor come in and, they could just put a little bit of roof cement on that and walk away thinking that's a good fix, or again, at worst case, they'll caulk that up and walk away. But the real fix of that is, you need to spud that gravel back down, expose that asphalt underneath there, and do a patch on that, go down to the roof surface and up onto that flashing a little bit with a minimum of a 3-course system, which is your mastic, your fiberglass fabric, and another top layer of mastic. You can go as far as a 5-course, and that's your mastic, flashing, mastic, flashing, mastic, flashing, mastic. So that would be the best fix on that. And then, if it's aluminum coated, come back after that flashing is cured out a little bit and touch it up.
Gotcha. I see this one all the time, Craig. We've got a decent looking, looks to me like a TPO roof coming up, being terminated. What are some maybe problematic areas that we're seeing here?
Well, what I'm seeing here is, the expansion type rawl plugs that hold that turn bar in. A lot of roofing companies don't realize, what that does to the substrate behind it. Every area they put one of those rawl plugs in, it's held in by expansion, which is expanding against those bricks. It's going to crack over time, allowing water to come into that, roof system.
Yep. So we've got that, and then, another thing here is we've got just one layer of defense here on the flashing. So to your point, we've got the turn bar secured into the masonry. Those rawl plugs might come loose. Now, really, all we're relying on is that top bead of sealant holding up. So, we would expect this to leak. But typically with sealant, you're looking at what?
It's minimal. It's 5 to 8 years, and if you're putting on a 10 to 20-year roof, expect a call back on that.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll address later in the presentation some really, good long-term solutions to this very common detail. But again, we don't want to rely on sealant. So if we come back, run into the situation that's leaking, caulking might not be the best solution. We might want to redesign this detail. It's more of a strategic repair approach to make sure it's a real long-term solution. Craig, we've got failing patches here.
Yeah, and here, it looks like it's an older EPDM style roof, and they didn't have the primers and the cleaners and the self-adhering membranes, and it looks like you know, this has just popped up over time with weather. But, you know, your typical contractor, what I see a lot is coming in here and they'll just recaulk that patch down. And, you know, to do that right is, you know, cut away any of that loose patch and use the modern technology with our new equipment and the new products and, you know, do a large scale patch over that and, you know, up to industry standards on that.
Good point. Boy, Craig, we hear this one all the time. I mean, so misconception number 3, all repairs must be done by the installing contractor. I hear it, you know, daily. Hey, I've got issues, but I need to use the roofer that installed this. It's still under warranty, right? So, you know, I get that. The importance of maintaining a warranty can be huge. I mean, warranties are something you've paid for. They do offer you some level of protection, you know, against roof failures and things like that. So we want to maintain that warranty. But the one thing that we have to really understand is that if no contractor's warranty is in place, any authorized contractor can perform the repairs. So the critical part here is a contractor warranty. So we call those guarantees. Those are guarantees on workmanship. Typically, industry standard contractors will offer on a roof replacement anywhere from 6 months to 2 years maximum. So at that point, the contractor's guarantee is no longer, and all you have in place is that manufacturer's warranty. So in order to maintain the manufacturer's warranty, you can use any authorized contractor through that specific manufacturer. And that's really, really big. So you want to make sure that if you do call out a repair contractor that they are authorized through the manufacturer, but you are not obligated to use your installing contractor, because back to our one of our opening statements, you know, not all installing contractors are really good repair contractors. So
That's right.
We really want to find those specialty repair contractors. So Craig, misconception number 4, you know, sources of roof leaks are easily identified.
That's good.
That's good. That's good. I mean, we think about it, you know, roofing can appear to be simple, but we see this all the time. I mean, where water enters the interior of the building, we see a leak in, you know, a cafeteria of a school or something right at the center of the building in the gymnasium, and you guys go up there and the leak's 100 feet away, or the problem on the roof is hundreds of feet away from where it's coming in. I mean, we see that at schools, hospitals, manufacturing facilities, all over the place, and it can be, you know, pretty complex. Why is it like that?
Well, a lot of times, if you're not experienced in what we call chasing a leak, you know, you'll go inside, and if it's a enclosed ceiling, drop ceiling in there, you can't really see where the leak's coming through. You got an idea, so the typical contractor will pace it off, you know, north, south, east, west, get their paces, and then they'll pace it off on the roof, and they'll just look in that general area. You know, if you pop that ceiling tile out, see what kind of decking it is, which way it's going, you know, that'll play a lot in your findings. So what you want to do is pop that tile, look at the deck. If it's concrete decking, I mean, concrete, your water can travel 30, 40, 50 feet before it finds a weak spot. Metal decking, you know, not so far, you know, 20 to 30 feet, you know, depending on how big the decking is. Gyp deck, that's pretty common. You know, that'll just leak through. It's like drywall. So you really have to focus on your decking type and where it's at, you know, and also what type of roof system it is. You know, if it's a BUR 4-ply roof, I mean, it's got a lot of roofing to get through, you know, and migrate its way down. And if there's any slope on the roof at all, you know, it's you got to be experienced to find that leak.
Misconception number 5. So roof repairs only need a sticky product like mastic or caulk to repair leaks. And we've been talking about that quite a bit already today. You know, your typical contractor's going to come out there and potentially use a sticky product. I mean, and sometimes it'll work. Sometimes, Craig, I mean, what do we see?
So here you've got, you know, your sealant failure. Looks like it's probably leaked at one time or a couple times. And, you know, the contractor at least pinpointed where the leak was coming from and put some caulk on it. Well, with your sheet metal flashings, there's so much expansion and contraction in there. If you don't have, you know, the adequate overlap on it, you know, it's going to expand beyond its capabilities of keeping the building watertight. Try to put your sealant in between you know, your laps, I would never put it over the top. You know, just the sun, the UV rays, the weather's just going to deteriorate that sealant faster than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So this is a critical part of that. So, you know, materials must be compatible with the existing system being repaired. So you really need to understand, you know, what type of roof system you have in place, what component you're fixing, because each material and each repair material has a very specific application. So we need to make sure that our systems are compatible with what's actually being repaired. So here we've got, you know, a grade A roofing crew. We like, I guess, to see this level of oversight, right? We've got 2 guys working, one's rec supervisor, and 3 guys in the background kind of relaxing here. So
yeah, we'll call those material handlers.
Yeah, exactly, material handlers. But no, this is actually a training session, so we're kind of being trained. But what we're looking at here, a really, you know, solid repair on a built-up roof system. But this gets into really compatible materials. So Craig, I mean, why is it important to use compatible materials?
You know, your compatible materials, they're designed and developed using the same chemical compounds of what your roof is. You know, for instance, on a just an asphalt gravel BUR roof, you can use your like materials with that, but don't get those confused with a coal tar pitch roof. The materials that you use on an asphalt roof, they'll work short term on a coal tar pitch, but you need a tar-based material on coal tar pitch. It's the only thing compatible with it. TPOs and PVCs, you know, they're both white. You can get them both shaded as well, but the white ones, they just look so much alike, and, you know, people can mistakenly grab, you know, a PVC and try to weld it to TPO, and it's just not going to work. Just be mindful of the materials you're grabbing, because it could cost you in the end.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So let's look at some considerations of, you know, different roof repair and materials. Craig, this is something that we see quite a bit all the time. I mean, what is this, a kick hole?
Yeah, a lot of times that's you know, we'll call it a boot kick, a kick hole. And, you know, it could be so much as somebody dropped something there, or the flashing has just failed there over time. There's something resting on it, you know, to make that puncture. And, you know, it's a common issue, and the most common repair that I've seen is just people putting a layer of mastic on it, just roof cement, just packing that hole. Well, that's not a permanent repair. You know, that's a temporary, get them dry and hope to come back tomorrow and make a permanent repair on that. You know, the permanent repair is to, you know, prime that, clean it really good, put some asphalt cut back primer on that, and a 3-course at minimum over that. And, you know, the best repair obviously is a 5-course, you know, get those layers built up and durable.
Okay.
Well, here, Nick, we have an edge metal system that looks like it ran short. So they just put a little piece over the top. You know, that could be what we call an exterior splice plate. It could be a you know, just an added piece because they were 3 or 4 inches short. I'll give them the benefit that the exterior splice plate, and those are good in the short term. Long term, you'd want that splice plate on the interior side of that, you know, 6 to 8 inches long with a minimum of 3 to 4 inch overlap with your sealant in there, and it'll be better in the long term, you know, more give and take on that sealant.
Gotcha. What might you be able to do in a remedial scenario like this? You come into this situation, clearly that's going to be problematic, leaking. I mean, what are some things that you could do to make that a good, solid repair?
One thing, you know, typically what I see is people just caulk the edge. You know, to make that repair a little more long-term and durable is take that small piece off there and just put a larger piece on there, you know, like a 2-foot piece minimum. And, you know, then you can fasten it back down. But if you notice also, there's so much give and take and expansion, contraction on that type of system that the screw is popped loose, and you might want to reconsider a different system.
Okay. Oh, looks pretty good, Craig. I mean, kind of more better in this application, or?
More is better. So yeah, here's what we call the spray and pray. You know, spray the caulk to it and walk away. But this is it's a common, very, very common detail that does not work. It will fail, you know, within a year or two of installation. And so what do you got here? You have you know, a PVC roof, their turn bar, and that manufacturer's detail. You know, overlapping an existing roof with a metal detail counterflashing. Looks to be a two-piece regular cut counterflashing. Might I add, that's probably the best system you can get.
Yeah.
And so what's going to happen over time here is your expansion contraction of different materials. The sealant's going to break, and you will have a leak there. But you know, common contractor will come out and, you know, just put a little more caulk on it. You know, keep them dried up. What needs to be done is, you know, put a flashing over that turn bar and extend over the existing, you know, a foot or so, and give that plenty of movement in there with some sealant in between it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Here, I mean, it looks to be like we have a pretty similar detail.
Yeah, this is similar. They had the basic idea down, you know, with the two-piece counter flashing system again. And there's a couple things going on here. They use some caulk there to bridge that gap as well, instead of overlapping and, you know, making a nice watertight system there. But they've also caulked the weep holes, and that will, you know, back that water up into that wall, and it'll find its way in and back into the roofing system.
Yep, so you want to be really careful there, because in these applications, it could be creating more harm than good, actually, you know, suffocating that wall system.
Yep.
What are we seeing here, Craig?
Nick, here I see a rooftop curb.
Yeah.
You know, and it's this is a very, very typical detail. Looks like it's a job well done. I would say they need to come back through and finish up their corners a little bit, or readdress those with, you know, another three-course system on that. Maybe dress up the base flashing around that a little bit.
Yep.
That's about all I see on that. It's a pretty common detail.
Yep. Okay. And then here it looks like, you know, we've got a EPDM, common-looking, you know, EPDM system. What's going on here?
What we have here is the membrane shrinkage over the years. You know, it will shrink a little bit, and then it'll expose. You can see that crack where the pen is. That's just where the sealant, you know, was applied, and it's actually pulled away, and the pen is actually stuck into a little tiny fish mouth. It can create a problem downstream, but as of right now, that's not a leak. You know, there's 3 inches a minimum of seam tape there. You know, a typical contractor may just re-caulk that. But, you know, the proper repair would be to clean that surface and use a primer and, you know, self-adhering membrane on that.
Mm-hmm. Good. And, you know, this here, again, base flashing deficiencies, you know, clear failure of the system here, that's going to create a leak. I mean, typically what would we see here being done, and what should be done?
You know, so this repair, it would be a repair, but it looks like the cause of this is someone used some winter grade mastic on there, and maybe not enough cutback primer before they applied the mastic. But you know, the typical contractor would probably come in and just put some roofing cement at the top, you know, that flashing, and walk away. To do that right, you know, we need to pull back all that stripping there. It's probably a 3-course, maybe a 5-course system that was installed, but that should be pulled all back and cleaned and reprimed. Maybe pull that counter flashing off so you can get up behind that with the top of your stripping there, and 3-course that at a minimum, and then come back and aluminize that.
Yep. Okay. Good. So, you know, when we're going through this, Craig, we've talked a lot about, you know, what the typical contractor does and really what should be done. And it's kind of a tough thing to say, and it's not that we're saying these contractors are intentionally doing things wrong or anything like that, or they're taking shortcuts. You know, they're not always taking shortcuts. But, I mean, this presentation is on the science of roof repair. There's a lot of technical things that go into this that we're just really scratching the surface on. So, you know, the material types, different repair techniques. I mean, there's a real science to this, and sometimes at no fault of their own, the contractors just haven't been properly trained, don't have that, you know, scientific or engineering understanding of how these systems work and really what the long-term things are. So a lot of them are really doing the best they can, but oftentimes falling short, and that's leaving the owners in a really, really tough spot, because oftentimes calling a contractor out on an emergency leak situation, that's an expensive proposition, and then you're getting a repair that ultimately is going to fall short, fail again, and now we're having that reoccurring leak. So to avoid that, Craig, I mean, let's look at kind of some more professional repairs. Here we have a before and after, but is this a green roof, or was that intended to be a green roof?
Looks like someone's going to enjoy a salad for lunch.
Okay.
You know, and I see a lot of that. You know, people will flip that drain basket over, and you know, thinking that they're actually eliminating stuff going down in that drain. Well, it's the opposite. They are eliminating.
Yeah.
You know, but once that basket fills up, the water can't get through it. So keep your baskets upright the way they're intended to, and you know, do some roof maintenance. You know, a couple times a year, clean those out. So.
Yep, super easy fix there.
Here we have you know, your typical gas line, low to the roof surface. You know, maybe during original build that gas line should have been raised up, and you should have had you know, a pitch pocket with some pourable sealer installed into that, and you know, a nice metal cap over that to prolong the life of that sealant. But they did field wrap that, and they actually wrapped their membrane up on the existing patch there, up onto that that pipe a little bit. And you know, with the movement of the pipe, it's going to crack that membrane. So the picture on the right does show a real nice clean patch. Looks like they did a field wrap, a nice tight field wrap to that gas line, and then a two-piece target over that, and you know, with the proper sealant around the edges. And you can see the primer that was installed. So job well done on that one. Yep, here again, you know, you've got some wrinkling in the membrane underneath their metal edge stripping. Very, very common, you know, when you come up a wall transition and, you know, try to get the most out of your field sheet and do that a one-piece system there. And then, you know, you're putting your stripping on, and you're rolling your stripping in with your neoprene roller, your, you know, correct pounds per square inch on that. Well, over time, that stripping will shrink, and that's what happened here. It shrunk, and it looks like it popped up out of that corner. And you know, job well done on the repair patch for that. You know, a nice round, we call that a T-patch, over that situation there. So that's a long-term repair.
You know, one of the things that you've mentioned quite a bit, Craig, is just kind of a lot of the prep work. I mean, I've heard you talking about primers, you know, solvents, cleaners, all that. I mean, sometimes it seems like we see, you know, good solid patches being put on, but that prep work has been lacking up front, and that's just not working out long term.
Your prep work is the key ingredient to a permanent long-term patch. If you don't clean your surface, if you don't prime your surface, if you don't take the extra measures to perform that, then your patch will fail, and you'll be back out there again making that same repair.
Mm-hmm. So, starting to, you know, get down to the brass tacks of the issue here. If you're calling for, you know, repairs due to leaks, we're really being reactive in that situation. That's not, you know, really a good situation to be in. You know, as an example, we have a leak and it needs to be fixed as soon as possible. We've got a scenario like one of our first slides where we've got the businessman there sitting at his desk trying to take care of, you know, some urgent issues, and he's getting rained on. That's not good. So we're being really reactive. We're just kind of asking for problems in that scenario. So waiting until it rains and pours in the interior facility to call a contractor, then expecting, you know, a good solid repair to be done in those conditions can be challenging. We're being kind of reactive in that scenario. Really what we want to do, we want to take a really proactive approach. We want to try to identify problems before they become major problems. So, you know, just wondering, how many of you have a regularly scheduled preventative maintenance program? I mean, is that really something that a good deal of us have in place, is a solid preventative maintenance program? And and why do we even, want that? Craig, why would we want a good, solid preventative maintenance program?
Well, let's go back to that picture in the very beginning. If that company would have had that maintenance program, you could catch that leak before it happens. You can make the proper repair, the long-term permanent repair, because, in a crisis incident like that, where it's raining outside or there's a ton of snow load on the roof, your repairs, you can still make a permanent repair, but it just costs more. You have more labor involved in it, where if you catch those up front, you're not damaging goods inside, you're not upsetting your CEO with water coming in on him. So there's several different reasons of why we would want to do that.
Yep, good. So to your point, by identifying those problems before they become, before they cause costly damage, in order to have a really effective preventative maintenance program for your roof, there's a couple things that we really want to look at. So we want to have an unbiased inspection of the roof and wall system components by a qualified professional. So, Craig, we're using RROs, which are registered roof observers, registered roof consultants, professional engineers. Those are the types of people that we're utilizing, but really anyone that has a really good, solid understanding of roof system technology, roof repair technologies, and it's really taking that unbiased look to see, okay, here are the issues, here's really what needs to be done, not necessarily what's in the best interest of that contractor. Ability to determine whether or not to do strategic repairs, maintenance, or preventative maintenance, or both. This is important. I kind of want to remember this bullet here because I want to get to this. We're looking at strategic repairs versus preventive maintenance. I want to get to it. This is really critical when we're performing this inspection. And lastly, we really want to do an infrared scan. Craig, we're recommending every 5 years. To identify any substrate issues, wet insulation. We're going to isolate areas of potential leaks. Oftentimes, this is used as a tool to identify where these leaks are. We'll see where the insulation's wet. Oftentimes, that'll lead us to where the roof deficiency is, and ultimately, it was causing that leak. So this is a really, really good tool to help identify where your problem areas are, and really start to take that proactive approach to really see the overall condition of the roof surface. So back to the strategic repairs. So if we're looking at strategic repairs versus, preventative maintenance, the goal of a strategic repair are for the roof to gain significant life by performing those needed repairs. So really, if done properly, a strategic repair should extend the life of the roof by, a minimum of 5 to 10 years. So if we're looking at a common occurrence in roofing, Craig, back to your, the roof here where we've got the base flashing coming up, being terminated with the raw plug fasteners hammered into the masonry. Something here, we're relying strictly on that top bead of sealant to maintain the waterproofing integrity. So there's other things that want to be tightened up here, but we come in, sure, a contractor could just replace that sealant if it's leaking, no question. But what's going to happen 6 months from now or 1 year from now? Where are we going to be at?
That sealant will deteriorate over time, and you'll have that same leak again, especially if that brick is cracked, a fine line crack because of the raw plugs. Mm-hmm. You can't really see it unless you get down into the bones of that system there. It's a problem.
Yep, and that's a common way of handling terminations by most major manufacturers. So we see the sealant being failed. Again, a close-up of the detail here where we've got, again, that base lashing coming up. We've got the termination bar secured into the masonry wall system and the sealant. Now, Craig, we come in more of a strategic repair scenario rather than replacing just that sealant and relying on that bead of sealant. What might you do in a strategic repair to
Well, what I would do is, for one, make sure all your fasteners are snugged up. Saw that picture of the photo with in the previous photo there. That the fastener is actually backed out. That was probably due to original install. They stripped that brick out with the screw fastener. So to make that repair, is snug up those fasteners, replace what's necessary, add more sealant, but then come in with the counter flashing system, just to cover that turn bar, get any exposure of the UV rays off the top of that roofing system. And that counter flashing will help you do that.
Yep. So this is, again, an example of a good, solid strategic repair. This is over and above, way over and above preventative maintenance. This is something that is going to be designed, we're going to catch problematic areas, and we're going to be strategic in the way that we approach them to really extend service life to these roofs. Because that roof we looked at, that's a 20, 30-year roof. That membrane can last a long time, but we've got 5 to 8 year details. That's not good. So we're going to really enhance those details. We're going to go about it very strategically to make sure that this is a good, solid roof system that achieves, its expected service life. So in order to determine if a strategic repair or preventative maintenance approach is, what's the best approach, roof condition is really critical. So what if the roof needs to be replaced? We don't want to sink major dollars into these roofs. We don't want to do very strategic repairs. If that roof is at the end of its service life, we want to do, minimal repairs to stop the leaks. Because if we're not doing that, by putting large dollars into a roof that should be replaced, Craig, we might as well be using, money as that caulk or that sticky, that's sticky. So you're putting good money after bad at that point. Really, you want to do minimal. You want to start saving, looking at, budgeting for future replacements. So, really by instituting a proactive preventative maintenance program, you can effectively repair what should be repaired. So we're going to have a comprehensive plan for what needs to be fixed right away and what strategic repairs will need to be done. This keeps you from really having to pay for the time, leak investigation each time you have a problem. You're going to have that kind of comprehensive plan. You're going to know effectively what should be repaired. You're going to reduce the spending on emergency repairs. So Craig, emergency repairs, are those pretty costly?
They are, and it depends on the situation. If it's Christmas Eve and you've got, a major roof leak, that could cost, to get a crew in from, away from their family for holiday, it's just the labor of, removing any snow that may be on the roof or trying to get the water out of the way, where if you capture these on a preventative maintenance program, it'll save you that costly emergency repair as well.
Yep.
And a lot of times, Nick, you'll have multiple trips because you have a permanent, you got the leak stopped, or a temporary, you got the leak stopped. Well, now you have to go back and you have to make that permanent repair. The typical contractor, they may just call it good with cost, but you need to do a permanent repair because you'll be in that boat again.
Yep, that's a really good point. And through that, you can put valued operating dollars where they're most effective. So hey, we've got a good solid roof. We're not having to invest in emergency repairs. We can use that money elsewhere. We can use that for our mechanical systems. We can use that to replace windows. We can put that into our pavement. We can put that into our plumbing. You can use this funding that is tied up in emergency repairs, but by being proactive, doing long-term solid, repairs, that's going to be eliminated. You're going to be able to use that funding elsewhere. So that's really, really big. And ultimately, eliminate additional costly consequences of neglect. So, Craig, we saw that, hotel that Fortune 500 was running. Do you think that was a cheap fix to get all that mold remediated?
No, that's neglect on your roof. That I couldn't imagine what the cost would be there. Again, if you had that preventative maintenance program, you can capture those little pinhole leaks in the beginning because, the wall looked like that. Imagine what their roof and their roof deck looks like.
Yeah, we could have major structural deterioration on the roof. We've got a metal deck, severely corroded. Could be looking at deck replacement. And to your point, we've got a pinhole in the roof creating a leak. Well, if we let that go 3, 4, 5, 6 months, 2 years, imagine the amount of wet insulation. So what we could go put a little patch on now, done properly, solve that. Now we're looking at, 300 square feet of wet insulation, major replacements, stuff like that. So if we can be really proactive, we're going to eliminate those unnecessary consequences of neglect. So that's very important. And
That's the key right there.
This is the key right here. So stop everyone from yelling at you. You know, we don't want you know, everyone upset at the facilities department because, you know, we have leaks. We want to be proactive. We want to run a tight operation. So, hey, we don't have that businessman getting leaked on, upset because he can't take care of, you know, the operations. We don't want the surgery department getting shut down and the surgeons being upset and the hospital administration being upset because we're losing major revenue. We don't want the plant manager have to shut down a line and lose major revenue. I mean, we want to be proactive and stop everyone from yelling at us. This can be very important. So in conclusion, you know, it really is necessary to confirm that the contractor is familiar with the type of roof system and is really qualified to be performing that work. So that's very important. Craig, I know one of the things that we have, I mean, it's like 136 questionnaire to qualify contractors, and that's something that we use all the time. It can be tough. I mean, we can call the manufacturers, we can do different things, but this is big. We don't want a new construction contractor coming out chasing leaks for us. That's not going to be a good thing. So we really need to confirm that the contractor is familiar with the type of roof system being repaired. Number two, we want to require a summation of work completed along with photos. Why is that important, Craig?
Well, that, you know, then the client is understanding what the problem was, how you fixed the problem. You know, is it up to industry standards, or is it just, you know, bottom of the line dab of caulk on a leak? With those photos and a description under those photos, that's, you know, that's going to help that client also bring that to their finance department and say, you know, we've had these series of leaks over and over again. Let's look at a preventative maintenance program so we can capture these ahead of time before they're a problem.
Yep, good. 3, we want to perform an infrared scan or other, you know, non-invasive test to determine, you know, where are our problematic areas. We want to have a full picture of what we're working with. In 4, we want to mandate a contractor's guarantee on workmanship. Very important. So this is one of those things, I think the first word in that statement is huge. We want to mandate that, because if you don't ask for a contractor's guarantee on workmanship, typically you're not going to get one, especially in a repair scenario. I mean, we see all the time where owners are investing, you know, $5,000, $10,000, $50,000 in roof repairs, and they're not getting any sort of guarantee from the contractor that it's going to work. So in a repair, we want to see really a minimum of like 6 months.
Yep.
I would say a good professional repair. Some really, you know, longer term repairs, we could expect 2 years. We start getting into that strategic repair scenario, you know, we want to look at 5 years.
Yep.
Industry standard on a roof replacement, like I said earlier in the presentation, when we see 6 months up to 2 years, really we're mandating 5 years to 10 years, because we want to make sure that we're protected through the manufacturer on the warranty, but also through the contractor on a workmanship guarantee. So very important to ask for that. Oftentimes you're not going to pay a whole lot more to come with that, but you know, if they go up there and squirt some sealant on it and it leaks, you know, 3 months from now, you want to make sure that you're covered on that.
Sure.
You want to make sure you're covered. You paid for it. You don't want to be paying for it over and over again. So if there's faulty workmanship, we want to get that covered through the provisions of a contractor's guarantee. So we are going to open it up to some questions here. I know we got some good questions that have come in. Craig and I are going to get to as many of these as possible. So here's a good one. So outside of infrared scans, what are some other non-destructive or evaluation methods that could be performed? So
outside of that scan, you know, you have we have handheld, you know, devices that allow that will penetrate not penetrate the roof system, but will read the moisture content below the surface, you know, that lies in the insulation. That's a way to do it, and that's probably the best non-destructive next to infrared scanning.
Yeah, that's huge. And then another one that we're using all the time, Craig, to really help with that chasing of leaks are different, you know, water testing procedures. So one of the things that we use quite a bit, especially on these hard to find leaks, I mean, Craig gave the example of it coming in somewhere at the center of the facility, but hey, that's a highly sloped system. We've got a concrete deck. Boy, it's hard to figure out where the actual problem is. So we'll do water testing. We'll recreate different rain events. So you can use, pressurized spray racks, different types of, advanced diagnostic equipment to do that. And again, you recreate these different rain events, whether it's a driving rain, a heavy downpour, wind-driven event, and you're isolating different details on the roof and potentially wall system. So you're hitting the roof membrane, you're hitting a specific seam, you're hitting the curb flashing, you're hitting the termination bar, you're hitting the counter flashing, you're starting to work around. Eventually you start to see where the moisture is getting into the system, you're recreating these leaks. So you're not, creating major damage to the system, but you're recreating these leaks to find out exactly where your problems are. And once you understand exactly what the underlying cause of the problem is, that's where you can really get into, implementing the proper repair.
Sure.
So that's a really good question. And you want to make sure you fully understand the problem before making your repairs. So Craig, here's another good one. How can I verify a contractor is experienced in repairing my specific type of roof system? Pretty big there.
It is big. I would start by asking, for some of those documented photos with description under a photo report. Look at their credentials and just ask them to send that to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's big. Kind of asking for their credentials. How many EPDMs have you repaired or serviced, in the last 6 months? Like I said, we've got, I think it's like 136 questions now that we're running contractors through to vet them out, because we want to make sure that they're experienced with that type of roof system, they're experienced in repairs, whatever it may be, but we want to make sure that if these contractors are going out there, they're very experienced. So you want to run them through the ringer. You want to ask for references. You want to check potentially with the manufacturers, look at all these different things, because you're engaging them to perform very important work for you to keep your facility dry. You want to make sure that they're qualified. So really, really good question. So thanks for asking that. Here's another good one. So when performing a roof inspection, are there any specific items that I need to look at in particular on a sloped roof versus a flat roof?
Yeah. A sloped roof, obviously the water is going to run downhill. So what you're going to want to look at is the way, your welded seams, your field seams, all your penetrations, and that you'll look at on a flat roof as well. That's typically where your leaks are going to fail, where, anywhere that was manually welded, manually installed is a problematic area for failure.
Yep. Okay. And I'm super glad that question came up, because that's something that we want to talk about roof inspections, and now's not really the time to do it, but there's a tool that we use all the time when performing roof inspections. It's a roof audit checklist. It's super simple. Goes through all the different components of the roof system. So the surfacing, the membranes, the flashings, the equipment, the drainage. Just a checklist that you can run through while walking your roofs and check off if you have problems, and really support in evaluating the overall condition of your roof. So if that's something you want, email us, and our contact information is here. So reach out through structuretech.com, and what we'll do, Craig and I, if you're interested, we'll send you out a copy of that. Again, something you can use for all your roof systems. You can walk all your roofs, go through this checklist, really see what the conditions are in helping developing that preventative maintenance plan. So
Nick, on that note, what do they do if it's a lot of information to them, if they don't understand what they're looking at after they go through it? Any suggestions?
Good question. So obviously, Craig, I think we would be more than willing to help out with any of that. So you go through that, you find issues. I mean, Craig and I will always be available to support that. We'll make sure to put like our contact information on the bottom of that as well. So we'll do a return to us. If you want to send it back to us, Craig and I can go through that, say, hey, here are some things, here are some recommendations, and just kind of help guide you through that process. So that's really good, Craig. I'm glad that you mentioned that. So we definitely want to be a resource to you in anything that you have. That's what Craig and I want to be is a resource, help with anything. So we do have a couple more questions. I know that we're running out of time, but like I said, we want to be a resource. So if you have any questions, you have any needs, please reach out to us. Craig, I had a really good time presenting today. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. I think it was really, really good. I think just help raise that bar and really understand, the science of roof repair. So any other questions, let us know. But Craig and I both enjoyed this today, and we hope that we have a really, really good year and that you're able to really implement some solid roof repairs and keep our facilities watertight this year. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nick.